Chapter 13. Scattering. December 1930. Slavko, Mama, and I stood at the train depot in the bitter cold to see Auntie Paulina and Tanya off. Tato wanted to come, but his back was not getting better. He hobbled to the door and waved as he watched us walk down the street. "I feel terrible leaving you all here," said Auntie Paulina. Tanya was bundled securely to her chest. Strapped to her back was a carrying frame that Slavko and I had fashioned out of Tanya's willow cradle. Tanya needed a place to sleep each night, and Auntie needed to carry her travel items. So this convertible cradle knapsack was perfect, and this way Tanya would still have the cradle that was made with love by her father. Just then, the train pulled up and a tired-looking attendant stepped down. He helped Auntie and Tanya up the steps, and they settled into a seat beside the window. Auntie's face was wet with tears as the train pulled away a few minutes later. We stood there waving until it chugged off into the distance. I would miss Auntie's spirit and Tanya's cheerful babble, but I was so glad that they would be safe, and I was proud that Slavko and I had provided money for their escape. As we walked back home in silence, I felt the edges of a paper in my pocket. Auntie had written the address of her cousins in Ternopil, and she had also sketched out cryptic instructions of the journey, but didn't draw a map. She was afraid that if we were caught with a map showing the way out of the Soviet Union, we could be charged with treason. Her notes listed the route by train depots, but she disguised the instructions within a chatty letter. Kharkiv, Poltava, Kiev, Vinnytsia, Terezhnya. There was a stop in Volchevsk, and the tracks went over the Zruk River to Polish Ukraine, but that was only for foreigners. Auntie Paulina's papers allowed her to travel within the Soviet Union, but it was better to walk the last 150 or so kilometers, because there were soldiers posted along the border. That was going to be a challenging walk for Tanya and Auntie Paulina. I said a silent prayer for their safety. Now we just had to get Tato healthy again and save up some more money. Then Mama, Tato, Slavko, and I could join Auntie and Tanya on the other side of the Zruk. Getting more money for travel would be tricky, though. And getting Tato healthy again? Was it even possible? Slavko and I had been taking turns helping Tato walk and trying to get his strength back, but the beating had broken him. The only thing that numbed the pain was Mama's poppy seed tea, but when he drank it, all he could do was sleep. Deep down, I wondered if he would ever be his old self again. The coal house came into view as we walked back home, and I caught Mama staring at it. Was she looking to catch sight of Yulia? I didn't even want to imagine how awful it was for her to be betrayed by her own daughter. Yulia had quickly moved up the ranks of the young pioneers, and she now led a 5-girl group of little Octobrists, kids as young as 7 who were given extra rations whenever they informed on family or friends. You'd see them everywhere, eavesdropping on conversations at the village square or in the streets. No place was safe from these little magpies. At least with Auntie and Tanya leaving, there would be fewer mouths to feed. Slavko got a midday meal at school each day, and that helped, but there was still Mama, Tato, and me. Shock workers patrolled the woods and river, making it nearly impossible to forage for firewood, catch fish, or hunt small game. Thank goodness the shock workers hadn't found our grain, and they hadn't managed to steal all of our garden fruits and vegetables. As it was, we lived mostly on watery soup. But without Auntie Paulina's seed grain and our garden produce, we wouldn't even have had that. With our animals all confiscated and our desperate need for firewood, Slavko and I had no choice but to slowly dismantle our newly built barn so we could use the wood to keep the pitch burning. As the bleak and hungry winter yawned before us, I could see Tato's health fading, day by day. As the end of December approached, Tupolev sent around a notice reminding us that Ridzvo, Christmas, was now illegal, and anyone caught celebrating the January 7th holiday would be punished. As a salve to the sting, he also announced that there would be New Year's Eve fireworks in the village square at the stroke of midnight on December 31st. "We'll have to stay up late to stare at that cannon that sits where our church used to be," said Tato, tossing Tupolev's notice onto the table, "and watch colorful explosions instead of gathering together with loved ones to celebrate the birth of our Lord, replacing Ridzvo with New Year's, a holiday without the holy day." A night or so after Tupolev's notice, once Tato and Mama were both sound asleep, I nudged Slavko. Tupolev only mentioned Ridzvo, not Svyat Vektor, Christmas Eve. I think it would raise our parents' spirits if we managed to observe Sviat Veker. But we have no church, no priest, and very little food, said Slavko. We don't have our icons or prayer corner either, I said, and we can't put a candle in the window to guide a wandering stranger to our door. That would be a dead giveaway. Slavko sat up. But we'll be together as a family, and we can say the prayers. We can, I said, and those are the most important parts of the evening. I'd also love to figure out a way of doing the meal. A traditional 12-course meatless meal without food? Asked Slavko. I don't think that's possible. It's not about the eating, I said. It's about giving our parents hope. You're right, said Slavko. We need to think of what we can do instead of worrying about what we can't. On Sviat Veker, Slavko and I set the table with a traditional extra plate to honor our loved ones who had died before us, and we gathered a handful of straw from our roof and scattered pieces of it on our table to represent the hay from the manger. We scrubbed our faces especially well and combed our hair in honor of our special night. As Tato sat at the table, his eyes settled on the extra place setting. His eyebrows rose. Mama brought over the pot of watery soup and set it in the middle of the table. She noticed the extra plate as well. What's going on? She asked. Tupolev didn't say anything about Sviat Veker, said Slavko. Mama blinked back tears as she sat down. You're right, she said. He didn't. We had no circle of braided bread for good luck. The few kernels of wheat in the soup would have to take the place of kucha, wheat berry pudding, that represented the victory of life over death. We each dipped our spoons into Mama's soup pot and stood, holding the spoonfuls of liquid to our lips. Tato led us in a prayer of thanks. Thanks for those of us still here, and thanks for those in our memories. We prayed for a better future for our family, our village, and our country. And we prayed that Stalin would come to his senses. We prayed that Paulina and Tanya were safe and would soon get in touch with us. We also said a prayer for Yulia, and my heart ached at the choices she had made. I savored each spoonful of watery soup as if it were one of the delectable 12 courses from Christmas Eve's past. I looked around the table at Mama, Tato, and Slavko, and I was so very grateful for all that I had.